Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is March 3rd, year 2024, 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and this is your host, Professor Hamamoto. Today, we have a very special guest. The talk of the day is titled Why Celebrities Are Quote Unquote Frozen in Time, and you'll get the double meaning of that in a moment here. So I'm very pleased to welcome Ms. Lena Pu. She's been on the show a few times before. It's been a long while since she's last appeared. And today she will offer some novel observations regarding celebrities, including Tay-Tay, as her Swifties call her, that is Taylor Swift. And we want to talk about the relative lack of newbies in the talent world. Why is that happening? Why is the celebrity circuit seemingly stagnating in America? And more importantly, why is this happening now in 2024? I think you're going to find this discussion enlightening and riveting and entertaining all at once. So with that, let me welcome Ms. Lena Pu to the conversation. Welcome, Lena. How are you? You're looking nice today.
Thank you. Thank you,
All
Professor
right.
Hamamoto.
Yes, you can. You may call me Daryl, please, if I
Daryl,
may call you Lena.
of course.
And some of you who are in the audience have seen her before in other casts, and few of you recognize that she's also a popular culture media maven. And what really formed the basis of this discussion was the reminiscence she had about the program, the situation comedy Friends, 1994 to 2004. It ran for 10 full seasons. And she came across a publication that was just full of friendliness. And I just thought, well, people are exercising nostalgia. But then she started getting into, yes, here we go. Starts getting, by the way, what do you think of David Schwimmer and Jennifer Aniston finally becoming boyfriend and girlfriend after 30 years?
Well, I have to say it's really marketing ploy to get them back onto the front page of what is this, the Star magazine? If you
Yes.
start reading the actual storyline, they're just hanging out, dating. Plus,
Okay.
let's
I
not,
did read the
they're not
story and
necessarily. Oh, they're just saying how the friendship turned into so much more. And we know these days, what so much more really isn't that big of a deal to them. So, it's. I was a little
right,
disappointed. I'm expecting like, oh, we're gonna tie the knot, or oh, I'm gonna have
right.
a baby, or something a little bit more meaty. But they're just dating.
Yeah.
They're
I
dating.
was I was expecting photos at the after party.
Right,
Instead, they're
right,
just exchanging flirtatious text messages, right?
right, right.
But this was and on my end here, I came across the current issue of the National Examiner. I
Hmm.
think this used to be called the National Enquirer, which, by the way, most of you know, had connections to U.S. intelligence, CIA, and specific the family. That's changed, of course. Now it's probably directly run by intelligence. But the headline here is Fergie and Andrew marrying again. I see a common theme here, right? Even though Fergie never, well, she moved back into the ancestral home of the Windsors a couple years after they were divorced. She's been there ever since. But now they're going to formally remarry, and they have two grown daughters. What's going on with there? You have American royalty, David Schwimmer and Jennifer Aniston, and you have, well, even though former Prince Andrew has been debarred or emasculated or has been stripped of his titles and prerogatives. I don't know if it's proper to call him a royal anymore, because most of the people here know that he was involved with the Jeffrey Epstein case. But why now? What's going on here? What is it that stimulated your deep insights into the celebrity culture of the present?
Well, Daryl, I guess I'm gonna have to reveal my age. I was born in the early 70s. I'm not that much younger than Jennifer Aniston. In fact, she's 55. I'll just date myself. I'm 52. Okay, so I grew up with Friends. In fact, when I was single and fancy free, I was working in Los Angeles, and I actually I attended one of their shows. It was
Oh,
in
really?
Burbank. Yeah, yeah. This was
NBC Studios,
That's right. And in fact, when Friends came on, I think that was back in 2006. I'm sorry,
2004.
oh my goodness, 1996 was when their show started. Sorry,
Oh, oh,
1993.
no, 1994. I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
Oh, okay.
1994.
1994 was their
Yes,
first season, right? So
yes.
I attended one of their one of their shows in 3 years later. I think it was 1997. But
Mhm.
it was my 3-year stint in Los Angeles, and I actually, a friend invited me to watch the show, and my voice is in the background laughing, on cue. So this is why I was so it was a heart tugger when I saw this being advertised, like, oh, hey, they're finally together. Because when if you're a Friend fan and you're as old as me, who grew up with the Friends, it was such a iconic time because they represented the new lifestyle that is to come, which was
Ah,
marriageless young people who create their own family, and they may be friends, but they're really a family. So there's six folks, three women, three young men, three young women, all looking for love, but not to tie the knot necessarily. They're not looking towards the traditional relationships that my parents found. So really, my generation, people who were born in the 70s, maybe in the 60s, we were the turning point where that was kind of the whole shift of the family nucleus unit to something that the Friends represented. And so, I mean, I could go on and on and on and talk and just dissect the whole genre of what Friends represented,
mhm.
on the social ramifications, of what it really was reflecting. And is it good or bad? It Well,
Yeah.
that's for you to judge. But I really have to say it really demoralized, I think, a lot of the way relationships were heading. It's
Mhm.
just like this
Would
too much
would you
freedom.
say this was an exercise in, social engineering? Friends?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was the beginning. That was the beginning of showing us the breakdown of the family unit, where
Mhm,
everyone sleeps around, there's no commitment, and it's like, that was the new um, expectation. And I
mhm,
remember the sitcom that I was raised on, everything was based on a family unit. Friends was the first turning point where it reflected the lack of the family unit, and nobody pursued the family unit. As a young person, that was not even in their wheelhouse. Because if you look at the sitcoms before Friends, they were all based on the Cosby Show, Silver Spoons, Family Ties, All in the Family. Um, there's so many of them, and I just even Married with Children, was very sexualized, but it was still a family unit.
mhm.
However, Friends broke that mold, and I was in that was my era, and I was in LA. So I actually saw exactly what Friends was emulating. It was really hard to find solid relationships, in Los Angeles, and I had a great time. I have to say that I had a fantastic single life in LA. So when I watched Friends, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh yeah, that's my life too, minus the extra drama, but it really was that way. People did live very free and fancy. It was
Mhm.
just fancy, footloose, and free. Um, So when I saw that, oh, finally they got together, that was the dream, when you were watching Friends, that you wanted them to get married, in real
Mhm.
life. You always wanted your heroine and hero to get together in real life, and but they never did. And only what, 30 years later, or how long has
Yeah.
it been? 25 years later. So,
Mhm.
anyways, yeah, I mean, it's the other thing is, why are they resurrecting this storyline that many decades? We're talking about more than 2 decades later. They're on the cover again.
Mhm.
It's like, what, they don't have other news to talk about? They have to resurrect this one?
Same with this and other magazines. These are headlines for people who are middle-aged, and I'm beyond middle-aged, but people of a certain age group, boomers and beyond, who go to Target or actually go to physical stores and have to wait there to check out. So that's their market there. But younger people, how can they what is their celebrity culture about? That's what we're going to talk about in the second half of this show. Because as much of a social engineering con job Friends was, and earlier All in the Family and Married with Children. By the way, Norman Lear has his own think tank because he was one of the original social engineers with All in the Family and all the different spin-offs. That's My Mama, Dynamite, and all those shows, right? The black situation comedies, which were only featuring black people. He got that from Britain. Sanford and Son, for example, is Steptoe and Son. Same with All in the Family. So they collaborated with the Anglo part of the Anglo-Saxon ideological alliance and brought that to America to make this the model of the Anglo-American social and cultural breakdown. Right. And I wrote a book on this, by the way. It's called Nervous Laughter. I'm the OG on that.
Yes, you are.
Not to toot my own horn, but I'll toot away.
You
But
absolutely
so
should.
I understand your critique. Exactly. It's just that I'd kind of aged out of the sitcom world where you were living it. You were living the life down in LA. So
Yeah.
it's, what how does this relate to the young generation? Because part of this, your observation is that the celebrity culture is stagnating. We don't see any newbies coming along.
That's what concerns me. Not so much that I feel like Hollywood is failing us, that's or Disney is failing us. No, that's not the case at all. It's more of like, I'm wondering, why am I recognizing? I shouldn't be recognizing these faces on every magazine front. This isn't the only one. We're talking about another one. This is a U.S. weekly, and who's on the front cover? But another one of my childhood
Oh,
heroes, heroine. I loved her.
for those of you who do
Very,
not
Drew
recognize
Barrymore,
her.
maybe
Okay.
maybe the younger generation might not know who she is, but she was iconic too because she starred in the famous film called E.T., another, artificial intelligence focused film that was directed back in the 80s, 1980s. And there was a whole
Mhm,
slew of the shift also in the type of movies and also the comic strips and cartoons that we were watching growing up in the 80s and 90s. And I,
mhm.
I know this is because, I've had enough history watching TV, starting from black and white. Um, my first TV I watched was a black and white TV, and then it switched over to
Mm,
color because remember, I was born in 1972. 1975, we had our black and white TV, and then by the time it was 1980s, we had color TV. So I remember roll a lot of these movies that um, started transitioning into these foreshadowing of what is to come. And
mhm,
my younger brother, played with Transformers. And wow,
mhm,
it's really a whole transhumanist agenda that was already put into play. And I
mhm,
remember Bionic Woman, Bionic Man. This is transhumanism. It's man meld with machinery. And back
mhm,
then, nobody talked about nanotech. They just saw, it's more of the cyborg, this physical metal parts or bionic eye that was implanted, like larger organs being meshed with the human flesh. But what we weren't told, but it is being shown through very subtle recent cartoons and a lot of the movies, is that the real intent isn't just the macro level of transhumanism, but the micro level, micro down to the nano, which we're all finally aware of. Okay, this is something I've been aware of for over 10 years now, and people are finally catching on. Oh my gosh, transhumanism isn't about just the cyborg. It's actually down to the nanoparts. It's down to the nano technology. They want to not supersize us. They want to miniaturize us. They want to control us at the cellular, the DNA, and more than the DNA, they want to control us at the molecular level. So, so really, this whole genre, Drew Barrymore, let's the whole scheme of this whole entertainment industry. Now, back to answering your question, why are they disappearing? Is why are the same faces resurfacing time and time again? Like Taylor Swift. I mean, Taylor Swift is, back in my day, back in the 80s, I can't tell you how many one-hit wonders have come and gone, because there are so many stars, so much talent. This talent pool was oversaturated to the point where, I guess they had to pick and choose. But nowadays, it's like, why are they recycling the same people over and over again? So just notice, when you guys go through Target, go through Whole Foods, whatever, the magazine aisle, just take a look at who's on the face. And if you recognize it and you're an older person, you really shouldn't, because, and when you go through the whole magazine, it's like everybody is still the same. We're still talking about, see, I need my bifocals here.
Well, on my end, I have Dolly Parton, Madonna. Come on, she's aged out by celebrity standards of the past. There's a feature, 10 co-stars who hated kissing their star. These are all people from the 70s and 80s and perhaps 90s. All the photos are the people.
Meryl Streep, Reese Witherspoon, Robert Downey Jr. I mean, believe I respect all these, actors and actresses to a certain point, and then here we have again. They're talking about Britney and Justin. I mean, this is not a very flattering picture of them. I mean, look at this.
Justin Timberlake, what happened to you?
No.
You're no longer so cute.
We know these. We know. Yeah, we're not here to slam the celebrities, yet we're also not here to uphold them either or worship them. I never worship these celebrities because they're from Hollywood, right? We know what Hollywood's all about. It's just stemmed from just the demonic realm. I mean, we don't need to necessarily go there, but the whole point of this entertainment business is that they served a functionary role, and their role is now becoming obsolete. That's why they're resurrecting these same faces over and over again, because they're not, number one, they're not putting money, they're not putting attention, they're not raising new stars, whether it's the movie industry, as well as the music industry. You can see this all. Yeah. That is my conclusion, is, well, one of them. One of the conclusions is that they are not putting their efforts into raising new stars. They're just recycling the old.
It seems like in the music business, you use the term obsolete. It seems like the obsolescence was planned.
Oh, absolutely.
Beginning with the spike lockdown, it ruined live music, and then you have Spotify, so-called streaming mechanisms, which makes it impossible for bands to make a living performing live.
Yeah.
And who are the groups that we're worshiping? You say you saw Taylor Swift. Did you see her perform in concert?
Yeah, I saw her in the Fearless concert.
How many years ago was that?
Oh my goodness, that was back in 2012, I think, or 2011. That was more than 12 years ago. That
And
was her
she's
second album, or her main album, or mainstream album. She did some country music before that, but her mainstream album, Fearless, was her biggest one, I think. And the reason why I went was because my daughter was into Taylor Swift, and she was only 10 at that time. And then yeah, right. And then Taylor Swift is as big as ever. So
to
here again,
your point, she's bigger than ever.
but it's artificial. It's an
Is it
artificial.
Frozen? Are we frozen in time? We're going to get to Frozen. This is more than a pun here because we want to figure out why this is going on. This is the signal strength of cultural forensics. But
Well,
before we do that, let's just briefly, I'm not going to be going pedantic on you here, but I just wanted to show you that academia, they're always like 10 years behind. There's a cultural lag there. So there's all this study now on celebrity culture when, according to you, it's stagnated, it's out the door. So that means that you're probably right. We're moving in to a new phase of post celebrity. I don't know what you want to
yeah.
call it, or meta celebrity. We'll bounce some ideas between us in a moment, but I'll just show you very quickly a couple of these pedantic articles. Here it is. I don't know if you can read it. Celebrity cultural production and public life, right? These are academic, sociological, anthropological studies, scholarly studies. Here's another one, Understanding Celebrity by Graham Turner. He's a British critic. I think he comes up with so-called cultural studies, the Birmingham School of Marxist inflected cultural studies. I guess now he's decided that there's not going to be a revolution, human revolution. Maybe he's said we're going to be in a post-human revolution. I don't know. Okay, just and I have tons of these articles. I'll post some of them on on this my Patreon site, Professor Hamamoto. And Lena, you have a Patreon site as well, don't you? What is it called?
It's just called Lena Pu.
Oh, Lena. Okay, great. But I'll post those on there in case you want to share those articles with your college age grandchildren or children, so they can study their lives. Celebrity studies are really big cross culturally because not everybody wants to study so-called critical race theory. So celebrity studies is the ticket these days. Okay, so Lena, let's pivot to you given the diagnosis. Let's talk about the whys and wherefores, right? It's easy to say, okay, it's all satanic, it's all, a bunch of pedophiles and all that. We know the argument ad nauseum. The whole conspiratainment market has been flooded with that literature. But in our conversation, we came with something much more profoundly important and something that might even determine the future of the American political system as we know it.
Yeah.
Please.
So if you guys remember our last interview, I was talking about how I was doing how I was changing the city ordinance, and that was just this. It was a godsend that was able to happen, and our whole talk was focused on how I achieved that, and it may seem like a miracle, but in reality, I believe this is actually the solution for all of mankind, all over the world, is to get involved in your local jurisdictions. And you don't know how important and actually how powerful that actually is in this day and age when the UN, the WHO, UNESCO, all those supposed international agencies that are actually private organizations, they're not government. Okay, we all need to understand we cannot treat them as government because they are nothing even close to resembling a governing entity. They're not selected. They have no governing board. They're military, because if you look at their titles, they're all military names, but they are actually under. They all have. They're all corporations. Okay, so we're allowing these corporations come and control the national level down to the state level down to the local level. So, and I know it seems overwhelming, and I've said this before on your show, is that it's not. All the things that everyone's complaining about, whether it's vaccination, 5G, or any forced mandates of any kind, it all happens locally. Your local leaders are the ones that's letting it happen. And so if you're complaining about it, don't. Get off your derriere and go and walk yourself down to the city hall and start making demands. It's that simple. Your city is what's allowing those 5G cell towers to be erected, the small cell antennas to be erected outside the schools. It's
These
your
are the council members and
exactly the city
the
council member.
mayor.
Well, the mayor is really just kind of a figurehead for representing the whole council members. You really have to get the whole council member vote. But more than that, this is the key. This is what I'm telling your audience and beyond, is that we can put our words into law at the local level. That is our power. That is our right. And that is our ability. And that is what's going to set us apart from any type of enforced, so-called enforcement from the upper echelons. The other thing is that the local jurisdiction has more weight because we are actually self-governed. If you look at all the laws, the local laws are all different. The state laws actually start reflecting more of the globalist agendas. But even then, the state laws are very different. If you look at all the jurisdictions between all the state laws, they're all different. But of course, then when you get to the federal level, I started looking at the federal level laws. They, across all the countries, the United Nations, they're starting to look very similar. Okay, because the United Nations has more control at the federal level, less control at the state level, and no control at the local jurisdiction.
No
They
control.
No, they
No
don't
control.
know this. You guys got to understand this. All
Say it
right.
again. No
Yes.
control.
Have no control at the jurisdiction, at the local jurisdiction.
Well, Lena, you were the pioneer in this area, and with all respects to people like Reiner Fulmick, they take a legalistic challenge to all these different forms of oppression. We're going to get back to celebrity culture in a moment because it relates completely to it, right?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I think what you've just told me here explains how the techno Maoists have been able to take over municipalities like San Francisco, the techno Maoist run,
Mhm.
Los Angeles run by techno Maoists. They tend to congregate now. This is all part of a larger plan in university towns like Austin, Texas. It's run by techno Maoists. That's how Atlanta, Georgia, not Atlanta, but Athens, Georgia, the home to the University of Georgia, where an illegal immigrant killed a jogging student enrolled at the university. That's where the techno Maoists were able to go in there at the local level. And
Mhm.
they, as a consequence, have managed to take over the entire national apparatus. Right. And these techno Maoists are very much
Yeah.
into, see, they knew that celebrity is our secular religion.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they said, why don't we control it? But unfortunately, a lot of celebrities, most of them, in fact, are really intelligent people, right? They're not dummies. They're not like the character that Lisa Kudrow played on in Friends. They're very bright. They're intelligent. They happen to be typically on the left, liberal side, but they're very smart, creative people. They have incredible stores of emotional intelligence as actors, as performers, as writers. We can't take that away from them. So I think the military, the what I call UNATO, United Nations NATO, which is has their slave organ known as the Pentagon, say that celebrity culture can backfire on them. They controlled it through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and up through the 90s, but they're doing away with it. Maybe that's why it's stagnating now, because
Um,
they see these people getting awake day by day. Even Meathead from All in the Family, even one day he's going to realize that he's been suckered by the techno Maoists. all these people, they're waking up in
Mhm.
droves because they're not stupid.
Well, whoever controls media controls the minds, and that's how they get to the because they know they can't control the government at the local level. They know they can get to the people through the media. And that's news, that's of course music in the movie, TV industry, radio. Um, and the reason why I also wanted to share why they're recycling these people for so long, for decades. I mean, we're talking about some of them 20 years, some of them 30 years. Um, the reason why is because they're easier to control. If you have an influx of constant new talent, you're constantly having to retrain them, retrain them, retrain them. But you get the same figures that have already been trained. They'll lift them up because they've signed the contract, they've signed a deal with Hollywood, and they've maybe possibly sold their soul. So once they've done that, then Hollywood goes, aha, whoever is controlling Hollywood will go, okay, well, these people, we're going to raise them, we're going to lift them up, we're going to sustain them. And I'm going to share with you something that actually I did a quick research on. This isn't happening just in the European nations or the English speaking part of the world. This is also happening in Asia. And what I actually found, which is really interesting, because I was raised in a time when music was booming and now it's going bust. I also have the privilege of seeing through my children's eyes the same industry go through them. And what's interesting is that they never went through this phase that I did, where the celebrities were so worshipped the way it was in the 80s and 90s when it was booming, because it's all being recycled now. They are catching the tail end of this recycled behavior. And there's a lot of points I want to also make about this. This observation is that, well, to continue on, I found this CD. This young lady in this picture is now in her 50s. In fact, she's the same age as me. She is still going strong. We're talking about recycling celebrities.
Who is that?
This is Ame. She is the biggest Taiwanese singer who was raised in Taiwan, but really just reached the whole Asia market, China, everywhere. She sold millions of records, and she was the longest standing artist of her times till today, and I think she probably has kind of tapered off the last few years, but she was hot all the way up until, probably a couple of years ago. And the reason why I rediscovered her is because my daughter told me that, oh, I have a song that is in Taiwanese and I really like her song. And I go, oh, well, who is it? She said, well, her name is Ame. I'm like, Ame, that sounds really familiar. And so she sent me a video of her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's still famous.
Well, there's something called city pop, 80s city pop from Japan that's beginning to take hold right now. And
Yeah.
there's also a revival, not even a revival, like a fetishization of 8-bit video game music. So I think this generation that the celebrity culture has skipped over
Yeah.
is making some new celebrity culture of their own.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting phenomenon to watch because get this. So she is now signed well, actually more than 10 years ago, she signed a contract, switched from a Chinese or Taiwanese group, and she signed a contract with Warner.
Warner America?
Oh goodness, which she signed a contract with Warner Music. Yeah. So Warner. So she bridged over to the United States music production industry, which tells you that all of these stars are being watched and groomed and owned, by the same companies. So this isn't by chance that this woman stayed popular. Okay,
Mhm.
there's everybody that's popular, they've been groomed and they've been allowed to stay, like Taylor
Now,
Swift, right?
I think
So
I agree with you completely. I think there's another stage, though, that we need to anticipate rather than react to on our back heels, and that is that as they're being groomed and studied and brought forth, they're also being, subject to expert systems and AI, so that eventually even these people will be done away with.
yeah. Well,
And
that's
this is where the celebrity culture of the present and the future intersects with the political culture of as early as 2024. The presidential election, people are fixated on election fraud. Yes, it is a problem, but what they're not talking about is deep fakes in the campaigning and in the election itself.
yes,
And I
that
think they've been experimenting with this in the popular culture with so-called celebrities who are actually avatars, and their AI constructs are not even, who knows if that woman Amy is even human? She might be post-human, she might be an AI construct.
well, by now they can do all kinds of videos. I mean, that's the whole point why one, they're groomed and they serve their function. They've served their function all the way up until now. And so now AI can create a full avatar, including voiceover, that is a complete image of them. So it would be redundant to bring in their minds, okay, the whole transhumanism, the whole AI, artificial intelligence is like, well, we are transitioning to AI completely. So why would we be raising the real flesh and blood man or woman into these places when they are eventually going to be obsolete? So that obsolescence is here now. That's what I'm trying to, that's what
Oh.
I'm realizing. It's here. Um, you look at some of the
Are you saying this accounts for the dearth of new talent in movies and in music? These
yeah,
celebrities, there's not very many young ones these
no,
days.
no,
As
because
many, there are, but there are fewer.
they're moving to a whole different platform,
Oh,
to a non-human, to non-living
post-human,
platform,
transhuman.
well, yeah, post-human platform. I wouldn't even say it's trans because it's not even living flesh we're dealing with. It's completely image, virtual,
Mhm.
um, meta virtual reality,
It's no coincidence
non-reality.
this woman Amy is coming out of Taiwan because Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and China are the 4 leading areas of AI and
Yeah.
this type of entertainment. Japan especially with Vocaloids. Hatsune Miku was a virtual entertainer that all the fanboys fell in love with, right? They're leading the way here, and
Yeah,
Warner
in
Brothers
fact,
wants a piece of that action. They might even be funding it.
oh, Warner Brothers is connected to all of them. It's nationwide. It's really the same engine that's controlling the Asian entertainment industry as well as the European nations. It's one and the same because when I look at the artists that are presenting themselves in China, they're all really dark. The videos look exactly the same. There's all these Masonic symbols. There's all these demonic symbols. They're in a bathtub filled with blood, and there's just all these really creepy Luciferian imagery that's interjected in their videos. And I'm like, China, whoa, because you think that, oh, they're a little bit more wholesome, or you think another country is more wholesome. No, it's not. It's really coming from the same breath, same. It's the same thread of control by the few families. The Yale China. Well, there you go. Right. So there is definitely
That's a centennial history,
yeah, it's
and
pretty
it was
deep.
the skull and
deep.
bones of the Yale people who were part of the opium trade who found Mao Zedong and raised him to the dictatorship. And
Like I
you,
said,
as a bilingual speaker, I'm gonna have you back on another show to break it down, to give us some intel there, because it's woefully lacking
Mhm.
in American so-called indie media. So we're
Well,
going to get the yellow
that's right.
political footprint here and how it's affecting America, the United States of America.
I think it's really important because we're both UC Davis related, and all the UC system, and you and I know this, is predominantly Asian. The population of the student is more Asian than any of the other races. So that is something we can also talk about too, because I think that's really important.
Certainly.
Um,
And yeah, but let me uh, support your observation by stating that this whole thrust of deep fakes, as it's called, right? The use of artificial intelligence in creating really lifelike, almost difficult, almost impossible to distinguish human beings from deep fakes, right? It was done in so-called porno and other types of sensational exercise. It was meant to distract from the main threat to our system of Republican rule, right? The
mhm.
electoral process. Deep fakes. Here's and I won't go pedantic on you, I promise. Here's a journal cover. Deep fakes and cheap fakes. The Data Society. This is a journal article that goes through multiple pages of how far along they are. I have tons of this, and I'll put a selection of it on my Patreon for people who want to nerd out on this. This is for real. This is not some musings of a couple pop-up pundits. We have studied this religiously from the yellow perspective. And one more, not
So
to
so
be
we
pedantic, deep fakes. If you don't know what it is, I'll put that on my Patreon so you can kind of get a primer of
mhm.
what deep fakes entails. Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, no, no, that's important to know. I mean, you've
Now,
done your research.
yeah, I mean, that's my area of expertise is media. Now we're dealing with trans media, and I don't mean transgender. I mean covering all the areas, right? Because the movie Frozen is a transmedia phenomenon. It went from movie, now they have plays regionally they have novelizations of Frozen, and I'd like you to talk about Frozen in a moment from your own family experience with it. And spoken word, it's become its own thing unto itself. Frozen. That's why I use the pun Frozen here, because they're the proof of concept of what you've been talking about. The
Right.
machine learning process as applied to entertainment.
Mhm.
Like, if you want to go back further, you can talk about Forrest Gump, right? That deserves another viewing. That was Bob Zemeckis directing, right?
Mhm.
That was proof of concept of how AI can be used to rewrite history.
Right.
And there was seemed as innocuous because it's only entertainment. But why can't the campaign 2024 be an entire simulation?
I wanna emphasize that the AI, all this fake reality has not only surfaced in the entertainment industry, but it's also surfaced as books. When you go
Mhm.
through Amazon, they're actually putting out fake books written by AI.
Thomas Pynchon, a literary
Won't even
giant.
You won't even know if it's AI because it's not,
Mhm.
it's not being presented as AI, as
Right.
well as
And
news. I mean, we know the news that they're also writing the news.
journalism.
So yes, journalism. And the other thing that's really frightening is I was just alerted that someone that I um, know someone whose child was going to be interviewed by AI, and that they were going to use biometrics on her facial expressions to see her and read her emotions. This is already happening. This is the first time I've heard where they're actually interfacing with the public, Okay, entertainment's one thing. Entertainment's one-sided. It's whether you accept it or not, that's fine. But when AI starts to direct the population, the public in this way, whether they get hired to a job or not, that's when you have to start drawing the line. I'm not kidding, folks. This is just the beginning. There's something that I really want to bring up with you. And when I earlier mentioned about how we are in control of our local jurisdiction, I'm not kidding about the AI now getting their fingers, their network, their virtual fingers into everything. There's Artificial Intelligence 2023 legislation. Okay. Our states are starting to allow AI to write law.
Oh.
This is you guys need to realize this. We're not talking about entertainment here. AI, this is not entertainment. Okay. The earlier stuff is just a reflection of things to come. There's 60 pages of all the states that have come up with Innovation and Technology Act. Okay, this is Illinois Human Rights Act. What business does AI have trying to write something that has to do with human rights? Okay, I tabbed these two because this is just going to blow your mind. All right, guys, you guys really need to start setting foot in your city halls, state halls, legislation, all kinds, and start making lots of noise. Get your words, okay, your living flesh spoken words into public record. And in addition, also start writing letters, handwritten letters, signed, witnessed by living flesh names of men and women. Okay, so this one is Rhode Island. This is artificial intelligence in the decision-making process. I'm not kidding. They're making up their own rules to protect their own control. AI is ensuring that they maintain and increase their control over man. Now, AI, you have to realize this is sourced from demonic entities. All right, so this mesh, this World Wide Web, that's an energy source. Where's that energy source coming from? Okay, there's a head to that. There's something that controls all of this. So this is not just a singular non-entity. Artificial intelligence is a type of intelligence that has no soul, it has no heart. Okay, has no God. It has no God-given graces about anything about this. Okay, it's okay, I'm going to read the details on this. This is pending. All right, this is pending. Artificial intelligence in the decision-making process in Rhode Island. And anybody's living in Rhode Island, you better start checking your laws that are coming down the pipeline. Establishes a permanent commission to monitor the use of artificial intelligence in state government to make state government policy and other decisions. Directs the commission to make recommendations regarding changes in the way state government uses artificial intelligence. So they're and then the next one, Rhode Island, says use of facial and biometric recognition technology. Okay, this says relates to state affairs and government, relates to video, lottery, games, table games. And okay, we're talking about voting, right? We're talking about how voters fraud was happening, all these last few years, maybe decade or more. Well, this is ensuring that it is going to happen because it says that AI is now going to have be involved in this the state affairs of the government related to video, lottery games, table games, sports wagering. Relates to the Rhode Island Consumer Protection Gaming Act, prohibits the prohibits the use of facial recognition technology and biometric recognition video. Okay, well, anyways, that's actually some of the examples. I mean, this is just two. I've got 60 pages worth. Okay, and
Lena, I think a lot of the people who are behind this, I call them the techno-Maoists, and even some of these tech giants. I think you
Well, they're
described
allowing it
very
to happen. I
you
mean,
you've described Elon Musk, right? He's an AI construct. A lot
right.
of Joe Biden probably is. We're already down that road. A lot of this, and the reason I say this is because you could see them, and sometimes you can hear them glitch out.
Yes.
Right, the AI is pretty close, but when they start glitching, like you hear Elon Musk going,
Yeah.
bit, bit, bit," or you go, "Bit, bit, 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 bit," like Max Headroom. They're glitching. So the glitchometer on that's
I
innate
know.
to us is sounding loud and clear. I see it in celebs sometimes when they go on these talk shows. They, "Oh, he was just high on coke." No, they're glitching.
Well,
This
we
is a
can't let them have it.
glitchocracy.
Well, we can't
We're
let
gonna
them.
be ruled by a glitchocracy.
Well, they rule by rule of law in the end, and that there are ways to put a stop to this, and it's um it's becoming a real joke. Everything's a joke to me. Every time I watch a video of some kind of a government, like Joe Biden. I mean, I'm like, well, is that really him? I
Mhm.
mean, he may not even be around for all we know because he looks different than I mean, everybody looks different. Everybody's been looking different on
Yes.
every video.
Hillary Clinton, she was glitching out in her last campaign. They said, "Oh, she's got a minor stroke." No, she's glitching.
Yeah.
Can I run a short, so like 1 minute and 30-second sort of compilation of that concerns the movie Frozen? Because to me, it brought in $1 billion in the box office.
Mhm.
I think it's the fourth largest grossing picture of all times, and it really affected the children,
Mhm.
the ones that are not getting the real celebrities anymore. They've been choked off from that. Tell me, what's your experience as a mother with the movie Frozen? It's one of the most beloved holiday movies now. It's become a holiday classic.
I have to
Frozen.
say I watched it a couple of times because my nieces went through it. In fact, Frozen really hit my nieces more than my children. My children kind of outgrew it rather quickly. Um, my nieces actually were born right when it was released. So by the time they were 3, actually by the time they were 2, they were wearing all Frozen, garments. They had Frozen paraphernalia everywhere. And in fact, when I would go Christmas shopping, I would always be buying Frozen this, Frozen that, and you walk through Target and everything's Frozen. It's I would have to say that the heroine during that time when Frozen came out also came out on the heel of a lot of movies that came out that started to challenge evil and righteous. What is considered evil and what is considered righteous? Because if you look at all the movies that also came out around Frozen, was Snow White and oh, what's the other one? Maleficent, the one that
101 Dalmatians?
that one as well.
Uh-huh.
So those characters that used to be clearly evil um, suddenly were were presented into this confusing light that, well, it's justified why they became evil is because if you look at their lives, they started going um the storyline became this excusing them, why they became evil. And
Now, how did
Maleficent,
they excuse them? Through psychoanalysis or
yes,
victimage studies?
victimage, yeah,
Victimology?
victimology, and they themselves were struggling. It showed that they struggled with good and evil, but they ended up choosing evil, and it glorified it. I think it was so subtle the way they did this that in the end you walked away and you said, "Oh, well, that's fine," because so what they did was they pulled the audience into the movie by relating to the heroine, right? That and then you once you start associating with them and falling in love with the character, once they turned evil, you're like, oh, well, that's okay because I identify with them now. That was so subtle. And I can't tell you, a whole slew of movies came out at that time. Frozen was a little less, it wasn't so much that, that the character Elsa was evil or good. But she did have a dark side to her. And that's what led to Frozen 2, because she had this uncontrollable magic that she wanted to find, the roots of her powers. And so that was what brought Frozen 2 onto the scene. That was actually much later. My nieces then were already old enough where they watched the movie, they really could understand it. So I watched it with them, and so that's how I keep abreast of all this entertainment industries, because I've got kids around who I really like to partake in enjoying the entertainment through their eyes, because I'm also analyzing what is being shown to that generation, because I knew what was happening to my generation with the whole transhumanist movement. So I was curious to see how it was moving into their psyche. And so with the Frozen movie, it did tie in with a whole movie genre of those few years, that I thought, so they're really teaching all these young girls really witchcraft, in
And
the
weren't
end.
the two sisters lesbians as well?
Well, no, that's what they. I mean, you could spin it however you want. They just never declared any love for, the opposite gender, but they didn't say that, they were necessarily lesbian. But it was the first time also, just like Friends. Friends was very anti-family, right? It was nothing about family nucleus. It was about living your life for yourself, in pursuit for self. And then, whereas Frozen probably the first movie where there was clearly not an identifying desire to find love, which was, because Snow White, Cinderella, Rapunzel, all of those movies, the girl ended up with a man, Snow White. I mean, all of them. So Frozen was the first movie to have broken that milieu. So that's the other thing I realized, was like, wow, that's groundbreaking. What is it teaching these young girls?
Mhm.
And again, it's so
It's a Disney product too, right?
right, right. It is a Disney product, absolutely. Um, and there's so many other hidden agendas within Frozen 2 that I could get into, that might have to save it for another day. And it has to do with, was talk about water memory and its tribal connections and indigenous cultures, and destroying the new to save the old. There's a lot of
Mm.
messages, lots of layers and layers of messages that we won't have time to go over, because we only have 2 more minutes. But
I'll show this clip. It's 1.5 minutes. You can comment on them.
okay,
Each section is like 5 seconds, and give your spot reaction to them. Here we go. Ready?
sure.
That's the director of Frozen. He won an Oscar. He comes out of the theater. Here's a close-up picture of him. Yes. Would you want him home alone, babysitting your children?
His eyes are crooked.
This is a book on Frozen. There's tons of them. Here's a academic conference that was held
Very
about.
Masonic symbols there. Yeah, the
Pardon
triangle
me?
and the circle. Those are Masonic symbols there. The
There you go.
circle and the
2022.
triangle. Yes.
Lena
That's
says Masonic. 2022 music. I'm looking at the academic angle because these people are studying us. And here's Frozen 2, which you mentioned. which supposedly has some environmental. She looks mean. She looks like she's on a mission. And here they are. Just sort of a homoerotic moment, maybe. Junior, that's a novelization of the movie. Here's some academic work on it. There's tons of material, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't have to look very far. Frozen, here's a script. Jennifer Lee is her name. You might check her out. Disney's Frozen. And some of the best criticism comes from Disney laboratories themselves, like how they realize the film, what they're doing here, using AI, right? Handiwork of Olaf's Frozen Adventure. It's one of the main scenes there, I guess. You could read that. I'll post that for you. Creating the water horse. How they do it through AI. And their new animation techniques is beyond animation. The wind effects, again, these are all Disney animators. And where are they coming from? Where does this talent develop? The look and lighting of this is also people who worked on the project. This is an industrial effort, ladies and gentlemen. This is like sending man on to the moon. NASA couldn't do better. And here you go. Through the popular culture, these different regional performing arts organizations adapt Frozen for the kids at home so they can be theater trained and literate and be in the light, spotlight, and groomed for who knows what. It's a franchise. Some more psychoanalytic. Here's where they come out of Rochester Institute of Technology. You can learn all the latest advances in glitch technology. You create political candidates for a high and low office. The motion picture science, yes, indeed, state of the art. Where does that funding come from? That'd be an interesting topic. And ladies and gentlemen, we're not sitting back. Here's an article that's warning us about the frozen phenomenon and the impact on your young child. Okay. I'll post that on the Patreon too for people who want to take a look at it and do a deep dive on all this popular culture that's being taken over by AI. So in summary, what are you telling us about the stagnation of celebrity culture? Is it stagnation or is it transition?
Oh, it's transition. It's absolutely, they've served their functionary role all these decades of brainwashing the generation that were glued to the television to now it's a whole AI construction. Everything's going to be AI construction. You know, we talked about the news, the journalism, and the entertainment business, the music industry. And we know that the pop artists that are rising in not just Japan, but it's also happening in Korea and China, is that they're actually going to see virtual concerts where there's no longer a human, a man or a woman on stage. It's a virtual figure that's being shot, 3D'd onto the stage, kind of like Star Wars, where where the image of the person is being projected. Well, that's what's happening. There's a projection of this image of this iconic pop, quote unquote star, that's completely AI generated. And that's happening in Asia. Asia is much faster in embracing this. Okay, we're still a little bit more brick and mortar folks, which I love. Stay brick and mortar, folks. That's what's going to sustain us, and that's what's going to protect us and preserve mankind. We got to stay real, stay grounded. And again, if the entertainment industry is being taken over, our legislation is happening simultaneous. That's what's not being told, and I'm sharing that with you guys. That's the most important thing. Your laws are being taken over by AI. Okay.
Well, let's have that serve as the closing statement for this conversation, Lena Pu. Thank you very much for spending this hour with us. For those of you who would like to see her back at some point to talk more, she has an incredible imagination and analytical ability, as you've seen. Please let us know. I would like to ask her more about her family, her diasporic family, who had to flee the communist revolution, the so-called Chinese revolution, to Taiwan, and then finally to the United States of America. And being a bilingual person and a bicultural person, I think you have a lot to teach us, to tell us. So I invite you back for a future show.
Thank you. Thank you, Daryl. It was an honor. Love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll be back with you next week, God willing. Bye.